What's up, guys? Welcome to Bleav in Rams, part of the Bleav Network. Erin Coscarelli back with you. Be sure to do all the things. Subscribe, comment, rate, follow this podcast. You can also catch us on Bleav TV. Listen, we've got a lot to get to. Some concerning news came out of Los Angeles. Wide receiver Puka Nacua on Sunday in a joint practice with the Chargers comes down with a knee injury. It happened when Nacua was trying to make a catch in a red zone drill. He continued practicing before having discomfort in the knee, which led him to leave the workout at the Chargers' new facility in El Segundo. To break it all down for us, Dr. David Chao, ex-NFL head team doctor for over 17 years, Sports Injury Central podcast. You can listen to it on Bleav. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And yes, I formerly worked for the Chargers in San Diego, but I was not at that practice for when Nacua was injured. So anything that I'm saying is based on what we do at Sports Injury Central. It's injury analysis, not injury reporting. And it's insider knowledge about injuries in the game, not insider information.
Yep. Fair enough. Well, if you can help us understand, according to Sean McVay, he had a bursa sac, and that kind of burst now makes him week to week. They did say reports coming out he will be able and available to play in the season opener against Detroit September 8th. But what did you see from the videos? What did you see happen? And can you tell us more to ease, or should Rams fans be concerned?
Well, certainly what Coach Sean McVay is saying helps ease the concern, but I don't know that it removes it completely. Yes, by video, and it's very limited reporter cell phone video. It's not NFL 18 angles in-game video, which would be much more helpful. But the way he landed on the right knee is indeed consistent with inflaming the bursa sac, maybe not rupturing it. That's a little different phenomenon. But it's also consistent with a posterior cruciate ligament sprain. That's what Puka needs to avoid. There have been several instances of that in the past. The Lions wide receiver and Bucks wide receiver that lingered at the end of last season where they missed playoff games. And, famously, Ezekiel Elliott in 2021 injured his knee PCL week 4, played the whole rest of the season, but certainly wasn't himself. And, some would say that was sort of the start of the decline of Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not saying that will be the case for Puka. I'm saying that's the hurdle. Look, I don't doubt that he has some bursal swelling. Sean McVay is usually fairly honest about what he says, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have a PCL mild sprain in addition. It's not surgical. I too am hopeful that Puka will be ready week 1. The question is he going to be ready, what we say as a 6 score in the 90s, essentially 100% healthy, or is he going to be a little bit limited as he works his way back?
That's and you mentioned Ezekiel Elliott. With Puka being a wide receiver and the mobility of his knee, how serious is this kind of injury for a player that plays that kind of position at that high level?
Well, certainly it's running back and wide receiver is a little bit different in the motions, but I'm blanking right now the moment the Bucks wide receiver and the Lions wide receiver that tore his PCL and missed the whole rest of the playoffs last year. But that is something where you can miss some time. You don't need surgery, but does it affect your cutting ability and stopping ability, route running ability? It could. Let's just hope it's just bursa and they can calm it down and it's bursa swelling and it's better to get rid of it. Look, everybody's cautious in the preseason, especially with your star players. Up the coast, CMC is getting shut down in San Francisco, a division rival, with a calf strain, just like Joe Burrow got shut down with his calf strain with the Bengals last year, even though in the regular season, CMC played through after a week or two off. He's shut down for the preseason. So let's hope this is what the case is. Week to week had me a little concerned related to a bursa sack, because bursa sacks typically are more day to day. But then again, maybe this is just caution in the preseason. So I'm not an alarmist. I'm just trying to give all sides of the story.
Well, when you say calm it down, and then you add the week to week, what is the treatment for something like this? And do you think realistically, season opener, Puka would be 100%?
Well, I think Puka has a reasonable shot, even with a mild PCL, of playing week one. The question is, until we see him running routes and doing things in practice, I don't know that we can say or guarantee that he will be 100%. That's the question mark at this point in time. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Puka in the next few days, how he's seen on the sideline, what sort of wrap and or brace he has on his leg. That'll give us some more context clues. Right now, it's not a 5-alarm fire, but you do want to send the fire trucks just to check and make sure there's nothing else going on beyond the bursa sack that has been.
Well, I mean, this is just like Sean McVay's worst nightmare. And the reason being is because these types of injuries, and granted, it sounds like it's not as serious, but this is why he tempers his players, especially his star players, during the preseason. He doesn't want to see injuries during the preseason. And honestly, the Rams have had some injuries during the preseason. Puka, of course, you have Jonah Jackson, some guys in the secondary. And, the thing that's, I imagine frustrating, and I'm not sure if you're following the Rams day to day, week to week, but they're looking to rebuild their defense. And with that, they want their wideout up against a new look defense like the Rams are trying to put out without having Aaron Donald on the field.
No question. Look, in terms, no, Aaron Donald is big, and there are some secondary issues for the Rams. There's some O-line issues, as you've mentioned, and you're right. Sean McVay doesn't play his guys in the preseason in games, and he wants to save it all. Matthew Stafford's coming off his neck issue that he was fine with last year, but the end of his season the year before. Look, deliver some good news. Pretty optimistic about Cooper Kupp at wide receiver. He's had some injury issues, and looking at his injuries and recovery, pretty optimistic there. So I don't want to be all doom and gloom. There is some good news.
Yeah, no, of course. Let's move on to other guys on the team, one of which, Matthew Stafford. Stafford, 36 years old. And you mentioned the injury in 2022. He looked mighty good last year. And during training camp when I was there, he was in rare form. He looked great. How do you, doctor, why do you feel certain quarterbacks stay healthy this long, like a Matthew Stafford?
Well, one can argue Matthew Stafford hasn't stayed healthy. He's gotten his share of injuries. He has just been tough guy for the most part, playing through. Some of his, being carried to the line of scrimmage with the Detroit Lions and throwing passes and staying in games has been legendary. So hats off to him. But not this past season, but the previous season it ended due to a neck issue, because you can't mess around with the spinal cord. And that is one of those one hit away from flaring up again issues. So there's part of my concern about the offensive line. The other area of concern, we talked about secondary. You guys signed Tre'Davious White, which is a superb NFL player. But last year he was coming off an ACL, and this year he's coming off an Achilles tear. Two of the dreaded A's. Look, we would have expected a better year this year from his ACL standpoint, but where is he at with his Achilles? Is he going to play? I think he's going to. But, to react and be the shutdown corner that he has been throughout his career might be a tall order at this point in time, at least for the start of the season. So there are some points of real concern for the Rams. We have a preseason injury preview where we look at all 32 teams, all positions. And right now, this is not the end of the world. The Rams are in the lower quartile of health going into the season. That certainly can change. And you can go to sicscore.com, Sports Injury Central, and give your email, and they'll send you that free report.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people curious because fantasy football is, building their rosters, and I think a big question mark is how is Puka gonna last this season if you're into fantasy football? So that's a great thing to probably check out for all you fantasy football fanatics before you get to your drafts. Another question too is Braden Fisk. So he's another one with an injury, obviously the new rookie. He has a blister, doctor, the size of his foot. Now, when I think of a blister, I think it's annoying, but a blister the size of his foot, I don't know if you've seen his foot, doctor. He's got a very big foot.
Well, certainly that's something that he's going to miss some time. And the bigger concern might be for a young guy getting reps and getting used to the new system and the work in training camp. But I don't see it as a long-term concern. This is nowhere near. Remember a couple years ago on Hard Knocks, Antonio Brown with the Raiders and the blistered feet and all that stuff, right? This is not that. This is going to be okay, but it does cost him some practice reps and time, and it's especially important for a rookie. Puka's still a young guy, less important for him. He's been through an entire NFL cycle and performed very, very well in the same offense, etc. For this rookie, that's sort of the concern to get the reps.
And then lastly, I want to spend a little bit of time on Aaron Rodgers, who also sustained the dreaded the Achilles. There's a lot of talk about Matthew Stafford compared to the accolades of Aaron Rodgers. I've said a couple of times, it looks like they're trending in different directions just by circumstance, obviously this injury. What do the tea leaves say with regards to how you see, first of all, Aaron Rodgers looking and recovering now, right? Because he didn't go to Jets camp right away. And then he's getting a little chippy with some of his teammates. Can you sort of break down what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, certainly physically, but also what are you seeing from him mentally?
Well, I'm not sure what the whole deal was about going to Egypt and missing the mandatory mini camp. Not sure what that was all about. I don't know if it was handled PR correctly or what have you. There seems to be other ways to handle it. But from his health perspective, I really have no worries. So why would I have no worries about Aaron Rodgers' Achilles but be worried about Tre'Davious White Achilles? Because Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback. He throws for a living from his arms. He does scramble, move in the pocket some, but he, in this healthiest of days, could not play cornerback. The rigors of cornerback are so much different and higher and high demand. And look, if you're only 80% at cornerback, you're smoked. If you're 80% at quarterback, you're still fine in terms of your Achilles. I think he's higher than that. Look, the day he got hurt week 1, Monday Night Football, in-game, when we do in-game injury analysis at Pro Football Doc, we said that's an Achilles rupture. And obviously, the next day when the news came out...
You saw it? When you saw it, you called it on the spot. You knew? Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the things that we do. Look, I studied film for 17 years in the NFL. I looked at players on the field, on the sideline, in the locker room the next day after an MRI. I knew the answer to the question, but I usually had half an hour to kill before meeting with the GM. I'd go to the video room. They'd show me the video. Now I'm not in the NFL anymore. I look at film. Then I knew the answer to the question and looked at the question, the video. Now I look at the video and go, okay, it was very clear that he tore his Achilles. I don't care that he stood up and then went back down. And that was the call. But the next day afterwards, I was on with Pat McAfee. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is tight with him. And the number one question there on ESPN and Pat McAfee was, is this the end of his career? And I said, absolutely not. Because I get he's, quote, older, but he's a quarterback. It's his strong arm. It's his front foot. I said 100% I guarantee he will play next season. There's no way with all his competitive fire he's going out like that. And the Achilles isn't going to prevent him from doing so. And I even said at that point in time, as a matter of fact, it's not impossible if the Jets make the playoffs for Aaron Rodgers to return last season. And we heard all the hubbub that he might come back in December, and people didn't believe it, but we said that day one. So that's the thing that we do differently. We do injury analysis on the front end and looking at it from an NFL physician's perspective, not just reporting what athletes or coaches are saying. So our opinions, and keep in mind their opinions, sometimes are a little bit different.
Yeah, no, and I'm going to plug what your show is, because I think that's brilliant to be able to sort of in-game diagnose, know exactly what you're getting, because
And in season, we do a Monday morning podcast on the Bleav Network, and be it for fantasy or for your team, we will do a rundown of the injuries from Sunday and what it looks like going forward for next week. And that's where it's been fairly popular to go through that, not only from a fan standpoint for, let's say, Rams injuries, but obviously from a fantasy and or betting standpoint.
Yeah, of course. That's a big one. Fortunately or unfortunately, people care about their fantasy teams, and they want to know if their player's going to perform. And with a wide receiver, it's, with the Puka situation or with any type of player that's like a wide receiver, they're almost like a stallion. You have to be so careful with them. I'm going to let you go.
Well, Erin,
go ahead.
No, perfect. I was just saying thank you for the time, and come back on any.
Please let us know again, how can we find your show? What is it called, and where can we find it, Doctor?
The Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast is on the Bleav Network. The website is Sports Injury Central, SICscore.com. And we do an SIC or SIC score for every team, every offense, every defense, every run offense or every pass offense, every individual player, especially fantasy relevant player. So it's a lot of information for people for whatever your purpose is, fandom, gambling, fantasy, football.
I love it. I thank you for the pretty good news. Looks like Puka will be okay. And even on the Aaron Rodgers front, love to hear that he looks to be okay as a quarterback heading into the season. Dr. David Chao, thank you again. We shall see you soon, okay?